大家好，我是阿婉，今天是2025年10月的最后一天。那消息，如果你还没有关注的话，麻烦关注一下，按赞就更好了。那来关注一下中国与加拿大的关系，两国领导人将于8年来的一个首次会面。那大家也都在关注说两国的关系会否转暖。那8年来首次，加拿大总理马克卡尼与中国国家主席习近平，那预计是在韩国庆州的一个 iPad 期间坐下来进行正式的会谈。那对两国来说，这都不是那种很轻松的寒暄，用那个卡尼的话说，这是很低的起点，然后重新开工的一次试探。因为说两国的关系其实也不体面，当前不过有一个微妙的一点，就是说自从特朗普上台之后，美国与加拿大的关系，加拿大与美国的关系也变得很糟。然后那美国也成功拿到了加拿大最不信任的国家。那其次的话那就是中国了。反正中国和美国现在已经是加拿大头2号不信任的国家。那回顾一下背景，在这过去的一个几年间，中加的关系是一路下挫。2018年华为高管事件，华为的高管是在加拿大被捕，那中国就抓了2个人来相对，然后后来3个人相当于说是这种等价交换式的一个换壶。那这个是让加拿大的一个社会留下了一个持久的愤懑。那还有一个是2022年的印尼招待会上，习近平当面训斥特鲁多泄密，那画面呢就像校长在教训小学生。所以说再加上的话，加方今年调查又发现说中国干预大选的一个证据，虽然没有从根本上改变结果，那这些片段的话就会把中国变成了从加拿大的信任掏空了。所以说那此次呢，真正把会面推上日程的是属于外部压力的一个联动效应。特朗普的全球关税攻势和他难以预测的外交，那迫使渥太华这位昔日的传统盟友盘算，在对华至少在经贸上有所回旋，跟美国的生意做不成了，那就还得再找出路。学者的判断也很直白，说特朗普是当今各类双边会谈的一个隐形在场者。那在加拿大，首要的是对美关系，如果能在对华的关税上再生口气，那也算是一个大事。所以说关税仍然是当前的一个硬骨头。加拿大是对中国的电动车征收了100%的关税，那中方随即对加拿大最值钱的对华农品油菜籽也寄出了最高100%的关税。油菜籽去年的一个对华销售额是50亿加元。那中国驻加大的一个使馆就放话，如果加拿大取消电动车关税，两边春天就到。那中方也会撤油菜籽的关税。加拿大国内2位油菜籽主产省的一个省长也在催促政府降电动车关税。所以说产业的一个现实状况是很棘手的。底特律车企与加拿大车企工会在强力游说后，那中国的电动车几乎被挡在了加拿大的门外。那与此同时呢，本地的产业也并未因此繁荣。那 Staten 是把一款吉普的一个产线从加拿大搬到了美国。那通用停产一款电动式的厢车。那安省第2家工厂也熄灯了。那有学者回忆20年前通用在加拿大是造了120万辆车，那如今仅剩下10万辆了。那加拿大境内的产量1/3来自丰田、北田， 那建议就是走对日模式，若中期来加建厂的话，逐步增产，就同步降低，逐步降中车的一个关税，那就是用产能来换市场，就是相当于说加拿大也跟美国一样，大家都希望说制造业就是回流到本土，然后本土的话就是因为就有工人啊吃喝拉撒，然后经济才有可能就是繁荣吧。所以说就是你看美国还是影响很大的，所以说这条路的一个风险是直指了华盛顿。那美中激烈竞争的格局下，如果渥太华对中国放宽，那很可能就是也会导致特朗普更猛烈的反弹。那如果加拿大对美国的长期依赖，还有对中国是属于结构性的防备，包括是以国家安全为由否决了外资采购，特别是在资源领域，想要掉头的话，就是有点谈不上啊，就是指望说加拿大就是微调。还有一方面就是另一方面的改变也是来自就是中国自己这方面的。那中国经济放缓，出口的拉动会恢复真的需求的一个上升，那也会促使北京就是重新评估对外关系。比如说那年底气足，关系可以硬扛，那如今需要出口也是需要找台阶，毕竟就是美国本来也是一个出口大国，又卡关税，又关系也好像也很微妙，不像当年了。所以说这让本次的一个韩国庆州的会面有了技术性的缓和的想象空间。所以说先从可交换的清单入手，那看看是不是中加两国有没有办法达成电车关税与油菜籽关税的一个互换，然后再去谈更难的一个投资审查、人权与民主等不可回避的分歧。那卡尼的表态是很谨慎的，他说他们没有预设方案，先谈关系再谈交易啊，把窗口就是先撬开一条缝。正如一个学者说，在一个根本问题上意见相左的国家做生意困难且充满焦虑，但只要能找到共同工作的事项，在经济与政治层面双方仍可能获得利益。所以说现在的剧情就是停在这里，会见是信号，那关键的话是关税就是钥匙，华盛顿的阴影和北京的需求是交错在上空。那真正的考验就是不只是看在庆州的握手怎么样，而是在之后能把这种低起点的关系工程就是一步步做成可以验证的一个政策互换。希望大家有没有注意到，就是我在换了一种方式去叙述中文的部分。如果大家觉得这样观感更好的话，也欢迎留言。那英语的部分我会一直保持原来还有之前的做法，就是直接读原文，然后希望大家能学到一点英语。然后英语的话，我觉得我有一点点提升。Canada's other superpower problem. As poor as Canada's relations with the United States have been under President Trump, they are even worse with the world's other superpower, China. The bond between the two nations has been frayed by bitter acrimony and mistrust on both sides. Canadian citizens have been used as proud by China, its top leader, public humanity, a former Canadian Prime Minister, and the two countries are locked in a brutal tariff war. A recent poll showed that the only nation Canada generally trusts less than the United States in China. Now there is cautious optimism around the first formal meeting since 2017 between the two nations' leaders. That a meeting between Prime Minister Mark Carney and Xi Jinping is even taking place is an example of how Mr. Trump's global tariff campaign and unpredictable diplomacy have forced a once close U.S. ally to look to China. Trump is the invisible presence in every meeting between two leaders in the world today, said Roland Pairs, an international relations professor at the University of Ottawa. For Canada, the primary overriding imperative is managing our relations with the United States, our closest trading partner. But if it's possible to achieve relief on the Chinese tariffs, he added, then that would be a great thing. Still, there is a reason for tempering expectations for the meeting scheduled for Fridays in Qinzhou, South Korea, where both leaders are attending the Asian-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum. When Justin Trudeau, a Liberal, became Prime Minister in 2015, relations between the countries had been tense because of persistent criticism of China's human rights recalled by the previous conservative government. Mr. Trudeau made improving the relationship a top priority, but a series of events made it even worse. In 2018, a top Chinese telecommunications executive was arrested in British Columbia under an extradition request from the United States, and then, days after, China imprisoned 2 Canadians. All 3 were released in what effectively amounted to a prisoner's web, but the episode remains a source of deep anger in Canada. In 2022, Mr. Xi scolded Mr. Trudeau in front of a news cameraman at a reception in Indonesia, accusing him of leaking details of a brief conversation they had at an earlier reception. The exchange resembled an encounter between a stern schoolmaster and a pupil. This year, a Canadian inquiry found evidence of election meddling in Canada by China, though there was no evidence that it successfully influenced the outcomes of any polls. More recently, China applied tariffs of up to 100% on Canada, an oil seed that accounted for about 5 million Canadian dollars, or about 30.6 billion Canadian dollars in sales that year, making it Canada's most valuable agricultural export to China. China went after Canada's imposed a 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles. Despite the bad feelings some experts believe there is a room to move in a more productive direction. The world has changed quite dramatically compared to, let's say, 6 months ago, said Bernard On, a political scientist and Asian specialist at the University of Toronto. Aside from Mr. Trump's wave of the tariffs, the most significant change, she said, is the stalling Chinese economy, which is forcing Mr. Xi to reevaluate his country's external relations. When the country was far stronger, he had shown relations with a bunch of countries. He did not care and he could afford to do so, she said. Now they need to join experts for economic recovery. Wang Di, the Chinese ambassador to Canada, recently said in a social media post that ending the electric vehicles tariff would ensure in the spring or improvement in bilateral relations. Mr. Wang, in an interview with Canadian television, said such a move would prompt China to drop its levies on Canada. Mr. Carney is also facing pressure at home to premiers in provinces that produce Canada have asked the government to drop the electric vehicle tariff. Canada has effectively shut out electric vehicles made in China after heavy campaigning by automakers in Detroit and Unifor, the union that represents Canadian workers. But the tariff is protecting companies that have been waiting for years, said Greg Module, a professor at McMaster University in Hamilton, Ontario, and former general manager of Toyota's Canadian factories. This month, the automakers that move production of a Jeep vehicle from a Canadian factory to the United States, leaving the suburban Toronto plant's fate uncertain, and General Motors discontinued production of an electric van, leaving a second Ontario auto plant dark. General Motors used to build 1.2 billion vehicles or so a year in this century. As recently as 20 years ago, Mr. Model said, and now they are down to 100,000. Today, about 3/4 of cars made in Canada come out of factories owned by Toyota and Honda, both Japanese automakers. Mr. Model said that Canada could better sustain its auto industry through copying its policy for Japanese car maker, gradually eliminating tariffs on Chinese vehicles if Chinese companies build plants in Canada and start producing an increasing number of cars. Still, Canada will need to calibrate its approach to making the country more welcoming to Chinese imports. Pushing the route would raise more backlash from Mr. Trump because of the intense global competition between the United States and China. The window is opening a bit that's up to government of Canada to figure out if they are prepared to try to play that window open a little bit more and deal with the inevitable outcome, Mr. Module said. Xu Yanzhuo, a researcher at the Chinese Academy of Social Science, told Chinese media that a major pivot by Canada toward China was unlikely because of its long-standing security dependence on the United States, as well as fears of retaliation from the Trump administration. Otherwise, defensiveness towards China remains prominent, she said, and our stance on core-sensitive areas has not fundamentally shifted. Mr. Xi may well have other issues to raise at the meeting. Canada has used foreign investment laws to reject takeovers of Canadian companies, particularly in natural resources, as national security concern. Still, China's human rights record and its effort to undermine democracies with limit what Mr. Carney could offer. It is a fraud strategy trying to find a basis on which to trade with a country with whom you disagree with in some fundamental ways, said Stu Price, a political scientist at the University of British Columbia. Yet the fact remains that both countries can benefit economically and politically as well from finding a common cause on which to war. As he left Malaysia, the first stop on a withdrawal tour of Asia, Mr. Carney noted that his talks with China were starting from a very low base and suggested that was a plus. There is no preset offer, Mr. Carney said. This is a difference between relationship and transaction. We are starting a relationship, building up the relationship. Thanks for listening. Hoping your life fully with happiness and joys. And please subscribe me. Maybe a sum or give me a comments and give me the idea yourselves. I'm happy to have a friends with you, and thank you.